Good morning, everyone. This is Liam from Veritas Prime, and today I'm going to be walking you through configuring new time types and rules in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The situation has been unfolding and evolving rapidly, and we put together this process overview in order to best allow you to fit your needs and your company's needs in order to be as proactive as possible during these uncertain times. First, some prerequisites. This is employee central time, so you do need to have time off enabled. Secondly, I want to emphasize that this process overview is US specific and only applies to US employees. So moving on, some quick background information. Per the latest legislation that the government's passed in response to the pandemic, there are two COVID-19 leave types covered. The first is FMLA leave. The first 10 days of FMLA leave are unpaid, but on the 11th day, it qualifies as paid leave and employees will have the ability to earn 2/3 of their salary. The second leave type is paid sick leave. This covers 80 hours of paid leave or the 2-week equivalent for average part-time employee hours worked. So what we're going to do today, a quick high-level overview before we get started, is we're going to create a new workflow. We're going to create 3 new time types. One is going to be the paid leave time type. One is going to be FMLA paid leave. And the third is going to be FMLA unpaid leave. After that, we're going to create some new message definitions. And then we're going to attach those message definitions to 3 new take rules. So the first things first, I'm going to go to Manage Org Pay and Job Structures. And we're going to create our workflow here. And I'm going to go over to the right side on this Create New dropdown. I'm going to click and I'm going to type in Workflow. Click there. And I'm going to just create a very, very simple generic workflow. And I'm going to title it COVID-19 time off. And I'm going to give it the name COVID-19 time off approval. And like I said, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm just going to make a manager and approver here. Chances are, in your instance, for whatever you need to configure, you're going to have a much more complicated process, especially considering the fact that people are going to be tested. There's going to be documentation. You have to verify that documentation. So this is certainly going to be more complicated in your instance, but just for the sake of what we're trying to accomplish today and giving, again, a high-level overview, a simple workflow will do the trick for us. Next thing we're going to have to do is identify the time profiles that are used in the United States. And in order to do that, I'm going to go to Manage Data. And in the search bar on the left-hand side, I'm just going to type in time profile so I can search for one. And I'm going to see what we have under USA. And we only have one. Again, chances are you very well might have multiple time types, or sorry, time profiles used in the US. And the best way to get a list of all those is to create an advanced report. And the important columns you need there are user ID, country, and time profile. Any time profile associated with somebody from the United States needs to have the new time types that we're going to create assigned to it. So this is the only time profile we have in this instance. And the only thing I'm going to look for now is to see this country region field. It's not a required field, so it's not uncommon for this to be left blank. What is important, however, is that when we create our time types, this field has to match. If this field is blank on the time profile, it has to be blank on the time type. In our case, it has United States in the time profile, so I have to make sure that that the time type has United States in this field as well. So now we're going to go ahead and create our first time type, and we can actually stay in Manage Data for that. I'm just going to go to the top right where it says Create New, and I'm going to type in time type. And I'm going to name this COVID-19 paid leave. And again, I'm going to leave it in unit hours because you have 80 hours. And this is the field I was talking about earlier. We need to make sure this matches the time profile. So we're going to change this to the United States. I'm going to give it that workflow we created, COVID-19 time off request, time off approval rather. And since our unit up here is hours, I'm going to leave this permitted fractions for unit day alone. However, I am going to update the permitted fractions for unit hour, and I'm going to have that say full hour bookings allowed. And I'm also going to leave duration display according to work schedule for this one. And I'm going to give it the same workflow as the other workflow configuration for the admin workflow, the COVID-19 time off approval. And last thing, I'm going to copy our external name, and I'm just going to paste it in this required external code field. Now, if you recall to the beginning of this walkthrough, I did say we're going to be creating new take rules. However, for now, I'm just going to leave this blank. I'm going to create the other two time types, and then we're going to create the take rules and then attach them. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. Oh, there we go. And this is just the warning saying the external code is long. That's fine. We can click yes. And now I'm going to go ahead and create my next time type. And I'm going to give this one the external name COVID-19 FMLA paid. And I'm going to change this to unit days. Country/region, United States. And once again, I'm going to use the same workflow. And since we're using unit days, I am going to change this permitted fractions for unit day. I'm going to have it set to only full day bookings allowed. And this duration display according to, I'm going to change from work schedule to calendar days. And once again, the admin workflow configuration is going to be that same workflow. In your own instance, it's certainly not unreasonable to have different workflows for admins versus other users, or different workflows for leave types. But once again, I'm just giving a high-level overview here. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Same warning. I'm going to click yes. And now we're going to create our last time type. So create new in the top right, type in time type. And I'm going to give this external name COVID-19 FMLA unpaid. Once again, I'm going to change the unit from hours to days. Country/region is United States. Workflow configuration is going to be COVID-19 time off approval. And same with the FMLA paid, I'm going to make it permitted fractions for unit day, only full day bookings allowed. And the duration display according to, I'm going to change from workflow to calendar days. And once again, that same admin workflow configuration. And last but not least, I'm going to copy and paste my external name into the external code field as well. And I'm going to click save and ignore this message. Click yes. Okay, now we're going to create some new message definitions that are going to be used on our take rules. Fortunately, we're going to stay right here in manage data. And I'm going to go over once again to this create new dropdown. And I'm going to type in message definition. Click that. And I'm going to give this external code COVID-19, paid leave. And the same name as external code. Oops. And since this is our paid leave, we can't exceed 80 hours. So I'm just gonna, in this text box, type in a message that conveys that. So I'll go with, you cannot exceed 80 hours for this type of leave. And I'm gonna go ahead and click save. Next, I'm gonna create our next message definition. Whoops, got ahead of myself there. It's a new message definition, not a new COVID. And I'm gonna name this COVID-19. We'll do FMLA paid. And that's actually in the wrong field. And for our FMLA paid, we can only take this time type after 10 days of unpaid leave have been taken. So there's our FMLA paid leave text. And I'm going to go ahead and click save again. And we're going to create our last message definition. So once again, top right, create new message definition. And this is going to be our COVID-19 FMLA unpaid. And we'll give it the same external code as name. And for this text, only the first 10 days of FMLA leave are to be unpaid. So I'm going to type in a message to convey that. And it looks like I might have a typo. Just going to fix that. And we're going to go ahead and click save once again. So those are all of our message definitions. So next, we are going to create our new business rules, our take rules. So I'm just going to type in configure business rules. And I'm just going to click this plus button on the screen. And if you hover over it, a create new rule pops up. I'm going to click that. And we are dealing with absence validation and time. So on this left-hand side, I'm going to expand the time management caret, and I'm going to click absence validation. And I'm going to name this take rule COVID-19 paid leave. And the first thing I'm going to do on this screen is actually I'm going to click this if dropdown. And I'm going to minimize this employee time. I'm going to click the minus sign right next to it. And I'm going to go down to take rule parameters, and I'm going to click the plus sign. And here we're going to select processing action. We can leave these two alone. And on the rightmost dropdown, I am going to click cancel. And I'm going to leave the then blank. And the reason for this is if we didn't have this if with a blank then statement, if somebody had gone in and requested a time type or a leave type rather, and then somebody else, maybe an admin or somebody in HR, went to cancel that leave, it would throw an error saying whatever time type can't exceed 80 hours, even though you're just trying to cancel it. This processing action allows you to cancel it without having to do any recalculations or any importing or exporting. So this is just allows you to cancel and restart the process if necessary without too much complication. So once we have that, I'm going to click Add Else If. And once again, I'm going to minimize this employee time. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add. So we don't want anybody taking more than 80 hours of paid leave. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to be greater than, and then 80. And in this dropdown, this first dropdown where it says decimal, I'm going to actually be under employee time. And for some reason, this demo instance text isn't showing up, but it is employee time. And under that, I'm going to scroll down to where it says user. Oh, sorry, no. Employee time, number of hours. Users for the next rule. So we have employee time, number of hours here. And next we're going to do get absence in days for period based on working days for time types. So I'm actually going to minimize this employee time again. And I wish all the text was showing up, but I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to scroll down alphabetically here for get absence in days for period based on working days for time types. And this is where we're going to do under employee time, click user. It is important that it's under employee time. We cannot click this user up here. It has to be under employee time. And you'll know you've got it right when it says employee time.user. And for the start and end date, I'm just going to do January 1st of this year and December 31st of this year. And in this optional employee time field, I'm just going to click down and I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and I'm going to click null. And for the time types, I'm going to do COVID-19 paid leave. Then this is where we're going to assign our message definition. Click the pencil, click raise message. And in this dropdown, I'm going to type in COVID-19 and find our paid leave message. And I guess I left out a word. It should say you cannot exceed 80 hours. But I am going to give it a severity error. This won't let anybody save it. Save a request, rather. And for our next take rule, I'm going to go scroll all the way to the top. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Create New Rule. And like before, I'm going to stay on the left side here, expand time management, and then click Absence Validation. And this is going to be our FMLA paid rule. Oops, I'll start with COVID-19. I'll keep it consistent. And the rule ID should populate automatically. Yep. And we're going to do the same thing with the if statement here with that processing action. So I'm going to expand that, minimize employee time, expand take rule parameters, processing action, and in the rightmost dropdown, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. And once again, I'm going to leave then blank, and I'm going to click add else if. I'm going to minimize here. I'm going to minimize employee time. Once again, click the minus sign. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to find get absence in days for period based on calendar days for time types. This is very similar to the last one we did, but it's based on calendar days for time types, not working days. I did just want to call that out. It has to be this top option here. And since this is the FMLA paid leave, we don't want anybody taking it without first having taken 10 days of unpaid leave. So I'm going to set this to less than 10. And same thing as before, under this user, under employee time, I'm going to find user, click. Once again, January 1st of this year, December 31st. And I'm going to make this null again. And to find that, scroll all the way to the bottom, click null. And for our time type here, it's actually going to be COVID-19 FMLA unpaid. We want this rule to count how many unpaid days have been taken. That way, if somebody's taken less than the 10 days, it calls it out. It can be confusing because this rule is FMLA paid, but we want this to be unpaid down here. And I did just want to call that out. And our then statement, once again, raise message. And this is where we assign our message definition. And this is paid leave. Sorry, this is FMLA paid. And I'm going to give it error severity. And I'm going to click save in the bottom right. So now we're going to create our last of the 3 take rules. Scroll up, click create new rule. And once again, left-hand side, scroll down to time management, expand that, and click absence validation. And I'm going to name this COVID-19 FMLA unpaid. Rule ID should populate. Yep. And for the 3rd time, we are going to do that strange if statement. We're going to minimize employee time, expand take rule parameters, processing action is equal to value. Click this drop down on the right-hand side, cancel. And we're going to leave then alone. And we're going to click add else if. Similar to the first rule, we're going to minimize employee time and click add. And we want to make sure that nobody takes more than 10 days of unpaid FMLA leave. So I'm going to set this to greater than 10. And this drop down here, I'm going to expand it. And under employee time, I'm going to click number of days. In this second drop down here, I'm going to minimize employee time. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click get absence and days for period based on calendar days for time types. Once again, it has to be calendar days for time types. And then under user, it can't be this top user. It has to be the user under employee time. And here it is. January 1st, 2020. December 31st, 2020. And in this employee time field again, I'm going to set it to null, scroll all the way to the bottom. And for this one, we're going to type in COVID-19, and it's going to be our FMLA unpaid again. And our then statement is going to raise that message definition. Raise message, COVID-19 unpaid. Error. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. And that does it for creating the rules. Now we have to assign the rules to our time types. So I'm going to go back to manage data. And I'm going to search for those time types in this right-hand side. I'm going to type in time type. Sorry, left-hand side. And we're going to type in COVID-19. And here's our FMLA paid. So we'll go to that one first. Click that. On the right-hand side, click take action, make correction. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and assign our take rule here. And this is FMLA paid. And one thing I want to note, this external code field is required. but it doesn't automatically populate. So be sure to copy and paste it over. And once again, we can ignore this warning message. And that time type's all set, so we'll move on to the next one. It's going to be FMLA unpaid, and we're going to follow the same process. Right-hand side, click Take Action, scroll to the bottom, and assign our unpaid FMLA leave. And we do have to copy and paste that code again. Click Yes, we can ignore this warning. And it's time to update our last time type. And this is going to be our COVID-19 paid leave. Once again, right-hand side, make correction, scroll to the bottom, and find our corresponding take rule. And copy and paste that code over to here. And we can ignore this message now. Now, one of the last steps we have is assigning these time types to the time profile. So I'm going to go ahead and find my USA time profile. And once again, we're going to stay in Manage Data. And I'm just going to search for a time profile, USA. And I'm going to click Take Action. Before I scroll down to the bottom, I'm going to click Take Action, make correction. And I'm going to add our new time types here. And similar to assigning the take rules, we do have to copy and paste that external code into this external code column. This is external code over here. Sometimes users have found that if their monitor or their display is small, this column doesn't appear. Not to worry, you can still update the external code by clicking Details, and that will show up no matter what. And I'm going to add my second time type, FMLA unpaid. Copy it over to here. And last but not least, our paid leave. And something I do want to note, I'm leaving this column set to no. This is enabled in employee self-service scenario. By setting this to no, only users with permission to administer the time will be able to. If I set these values to yes, this allows employees to request the time themselves. So depending on your own processes, you will have to change this. But for now, I'm just going to leave it set to no. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And they're all collected down here. And one thing I do want to point out, if you aren't able to find your time types here, the first thing you should check is, once again, this country region field, because if this doesn't match what it says on the time type itself, it won't show up. So that's generally the first thing you do when you're trying to troubleshoot this. If it's not showing up, it's hopefully something easy like missing a country or a region. But our time profile is all set. So now I'm going to go to a US employee. And I'm going to find her time portlet. Chances are yours might be labeled differently, but here we are. I'm going to click Administer Time. And keep in mind, I am acting as an admin right now. On this right-hand side, I'm going to click New Absence. And time type. Let's see if it lets me take FMLA paid. It should not, because I haven't taken any unpaid. So let's see if this take rule triggers. Okay, perfect. Now let's try the unpaid. It shouldn't let me take more than 10 working days. So I'm requesting 12 days here, but keep in mind it is counting the weekend. And that's 10 working days right there. This would be 11 here. And now it throws the error as it should. And let's just test the paid leave here. And once again, it's counting the hours for the standard work week. If I request down to 80 hours, 1 day less, it should not trigger this error. Perfect. Perfect. And we cannot submit. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this unpaid leave. I'm going to request 14 days there, and I'm going to click submit, and it should say pending. Perfect. And I can edit it if I'd like, and I can cancel this absence. This message still may show up, but I am able to cancel the absence still. If we didn't put that if statement on the top of all of the take rules, we would not be able to cancel the absence. And let's just make sure, yes, this is approved by Jada Baker, who is Janice Fredrickson's manager, and that's who I'd called out in the workflow. So that pretty much concludes the overview for this process. If you have any questions or anything with time accounts, please feel free to reach out to anybody on the Veritas Prime team. Any of us would be happy to help you as much as we can. Thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful for you all.